Good afternoon. Today we're going to learn about converting recipes. Now you ask yourself, well, what do you mean by converting recipes? Well, let me give you an example. Let's say that you have your own recipe at home that you enjoy doing, but it serves 4 people or 4 servings. That's fine. But next week you have a dinner party for 12 people and you want to do this recipe, but you're not sure how to convert the recipe. Well, I'm going to show you today how to do that. And that's by changing the number of servings, going from 4, for example, to 12. Now, before we begin, there's a couple different ways of conversion. One is, for example, the example I just gave you, which was changing the number of portions. The other example I'm going to give you today is not only are you changing the number of portions, but you're also changing the portion size. I'll show you with Mama's Italian meatballs, okay? So before we begin on that, I just want to explain to you a formula. It's quite easy to understand, but I want you to remember it because you're going to be using it for both types of conversions. And that formula is simply new over old. Now what do we mean by new over old? Let's go back to the original example. I mentioned that I had a recipe that served 4 people, but I have a dinner party next week that's going to be for 12, and I need to convert this recipe. Old is the original recipe. So in this case, old would be 4. New, what is the new amount that I want for the recipe? And that is 12 servings. So by using that example, if you look at the conversion factor of new over old, we're going to take that equation. Again, new over old. We start out with old. The original recipe is 4. The new recipe is 12. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now, we're going to do something here with Mama's meatballs here that will maybe give you a better understanding of how we convert it. Now, let's just say that Mama's meatballs is 4 4-ounce meatballs, right? So we can use Mama's meatballs here as an example. What I do is I put down a few of the ingredients of a typical meatballs, Italian meatballs, and this is what we'll use. We'll use the conversion factor. So the original recipe here, or the old, is 4. The new, remember we have that dinner party next Saturday for 12 people, so now we want to do 12 servings, is 12, right? So 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now, what do I do with the 3? By using, this is called the conversion factor. Remember, the conversion factor is new over old. So now with this conversion factor, I'm going to go to the recipe and I'm going to take that conversion factor times everything in the recipe. So 3 times 1 pound of ground beef is, the new amount would be 3 pounds of ground beef. 3 times 1 cup of breadcrumbs would equal 3 cups. Again, we're taking the conversion factor and we're multiplying it by each ingredient in the recipe. So it's the same no matter where you go. You go down to dried parsley flakes, it's 1 tablespoon, but if we take 3 times 1 tablespoon, that would equal 3 tablespoons, and so forth. That's how you convert a recipe. You can also do it the other way around if you're reducing a recipe. Let's say you have a recipe that is for 12, and you want to do it for 4. Again, it would simply be 4 divided by 12, and that would be 0.333, and you would take everything times 3.333. So you're reducing it. Same thing, just don't forget the formula. The formula is new over old. What is the original recipe, and what do I want to make it into? Okay, very simple. Now, the second type of conversion is one in which we're changing not only the amount, we're changing the number of servings, but we're also changing the portion size. So let's go back to Mama's meatballs. Now, Mama's original meatballs yields 4 4-ounce meatballs, okay? Now, we decided we had a party. Everybody loves Mama's Italian meatballs. So, you want to show off to the crowd next Saturday. You have an hors d'oeuvre party. You don't want the big meatballs, but you want the smaller hors d'oeuvre type of meatballs, but the same type of recipe. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this recipe and you're going to figure out, how do I convert this? Let's say that I'm going to take this original recipe that's 4 4-ounce meatballs and I want to make 24 1-ounce meatballs. Okay? So let's look at this. 24 1-ounce meatballs. Now, in order to do this conversion, you're changing both the number of servings and the portion size. Here we see a difference in the number of servings, 4 to 24, and the portion size is being changed from 4 ounces to 1 ounce. So, with that in mind, what do we do to make this conversion? Well, you have to get the total weight before you can do the conversion. So, how do we get the total weight? Again, go back to the formula, new over old. So, with this in mind, let's look at the
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
With this in mind, we have to, again, take the total amount of weight. So let's look at what we're doing here with Mama's Italian meatballs. The original recipe is 4 4-ounce meatballs. So, again, old goes on the bottom. So we have 4 4-ounce meatballs equals how many total ounces? 16. 16 total ounces. 4 times 4 is 16. Now, we want to make 24 1-ounce meatballs. So, again, the new amount is always on top. So, 24 1-ounce meatballs equals 24 ounces. So now we have 24 ounces over 16 ounces. So if you take your calculator and do 24 divided by 16, you're going to come up with 1.5. 1.5 is your conversion factor. So what do we do with it now? Once we get our conversion factor, we go back to the recipe. Again, we go back to the recipe and the original Italian meatball recipe, and we're going to take the conversion factor times the original amount. So in this case, it's 1.5. So we take 1.5 times 1, and that would be 1.5 pounds. 1.5 times 1 cup is 1.5 cups. Okay? And so forth. Everything, again, the conversion factor is multiplied by every amount on the recipe. Now, one thing, obviously, when you're changing recipes, it could affect things. For example, if I'm making meatballs and I'm doing them in a skillet and it's in a small, say, 10-inch pan, that's fine if I'm making 4 meatballs. But if I'm making 400 meatballs, that's going to require what? Different, maybe possibly a different procedure. It definitely will require a different piece of equipment. It might be a tilt razor. It could be many other types of larger pieces of equipment they might accommodate. So keep in mind that when you do convert a recipe, that you may have to make some adjustments. Okay? So that's today's lesson on converting a recipe. Thank you very much, and bon appetit.